Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Chris Prefontaine. Let's start that over. Welcome to another episode of Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Chris Prefontaine. I had Chris back on the podcast a couple years ago. I was just looking it up this morning, actually. Episode 129. So there's lots of value if you guys want to go back and check that one out as well, if you like this one, back from 2022. Since then, I've drank the Chris Kool-Aid a little bit. Whenever I actually recorded that podcast back then, I really didn't know who Chris was. So it's just to give everyone kind of a upkeep with this. And so since then, like I've read his book, I read Real Estate on Your Own Terms. I have this is my reading for the Christmas break, which actually a lot of people listen to this. So it's the new rules of real estate investing. So I picked that one up too. And so I'm going to read that one next. So if you skimmed over, if you didn't like the idea of buying on terms on the last one, I really think you really need to give it another look over. It's one of those things, even myself, I've been a real estate investor for quite a bit. I was doing some lease options. I've been doing lease options for a long time, but even just taking your lease options to the next level is what this is. This is about taking some strategies you have. And if we're going to talk about this, let's bring on the guy that does this all the time. This is bring on the pro. Let's bring on Chris. So anyway, that's my little intro for Chris. I appreciate your book, appreciate all the work you've been putting out there for everything. If you want to give any more of an intro to yourself before we get going.
Sure. And thank you, Glenn. To your point, if they go back to the other one, they'll get the great detail. But I'll just say that since the crash of 2008, we've been built our own family business, that we do the exact same things we teach our students. And I think the big difference here, as I look in hindsight, is that everybody has I got no time, I got no money, I got no this and that. The biggest thing missing is just a support mechanism. And so we built a community that allows a major support mechanism so you're not stuck in on your own. That's it. And so we do this all over North America. Yeah.
And that is the hard part too. Real estate is a very lonely business. I do a lot of transactions, and I sit in this office for way too much, way too often, all by myself. So it's great to join communities and be part of these sort of things.
Right.
So we'll jump into this a little bit. So things have changed a little bit since 2022,
right.
And I don't know if we should go into the definition of buying on terms. Maybe we'll just skip that to start, and we'll come back to it. But right now, things have changed in the market. It's a little bit more difficult or a little bit more obligation signing on loans, taking on debt right now is not a desirable situation. Maybe if you could talk to that first about some of these advantages of doing these term deals in the kind of market we have right now.
Yeah. So I'll go market and then general. So market, sure. Amazing. We could do this for now, but I'll give you some high points. Right now, we in the U.S. and the stats are probably parallel to what we do with respect to interest rates right now. So you've got a 7.7 average interest rate over the last 50 years. We haven't even approached that yet. I think the last I heard, someone got in the 7 range, which is crazy to me. Yeah. But they've more than doubled in the last several months. Now, all that to say, we're not even there yet. It's normal for me, but the younger crowd says, oh my gosh, they're so high. No, they're not high yet. They're not at a 50-year average. And yet, for the third time in 50 years, Glenn, we actually have right now, for the third time only, an affordability problem here. That's crazy. So in other words, so many buyers have been pushed to the side, and we're not even at the 50-year average yet. So that just screams out to creative financing, because you've got sellers now that just lost an enormous buyer pool. They just got pushed aside. And sadly, they think they can never buy until they find us right now. So it's never been better, in my opinion, in 31 years to be able to sprint for 2 or 3 years and literally create 5 or 10 years. Think of that, 5 or 10 years of income, a decade of income. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying if you sprint and you're committed, and you just pull out all the stops, this is the time where fortunes are created. And the press is screaming all the doom and gloom. Great. Let them keep doing it, because we can help a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's a huge advantage. And the other thing is too, you're doing It's multiple different strategies, different kinds of lease options, sandwich leases, and then doing some option outs and, basically lining up some lease options for people and doing some subject to deals. Like some of the perks to doing these subject to deals too, as well as you can inherit some of these older loans, right?
Oh yeah, that's a big point. So we just had 2 last week in our community, our students, not our personal family biz, where there was a 2.9 and a 3.2 loan we took sub 2. That's beautiful. Now people say, well, how'd you convince the seller? We didn't convince the seller. There are sellers right now that need you badly. And so one was sad. It was an older woman. She had a first and a second behind just a little bit. In my eyes, just a little bit. But for her, it was insurmountable. Yeah. And she literally was in tears because she said to our student, I was looking for someone like you because a lot of people try to steal her home and, lowball her. And we gave what she wanted, caught her loans up, and she's tickled pink. And she went with us because of the moral and ethical model, so to speak, because so many people don't care. And that's a sad thing, too.
Yeah, that is a really sad thing. But maybe I'll just touch. I have so many different questions or different ways we could go down on this. But subject twos, right? Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people, even when I talk about subject twos, they get hung up on that subject. The clause that they could just collapse your loan, right?
Yep. Due on sale.
Due on sale. That's what I was looking for. The due on sale clause. Doing the subject to deals. What's involved? Do you actually have to notify the bank that these are happening? Does the bank find out that you've transferred the ownership of the property, but not the lien on the property? And do they care about that sort of thing?
Yeah. So full disclosure, right? I'm not an attorney.
Yeah.
I can just tell you for 31 years what I've done, and more so since 08, right? Because I don't do anything else but creative financing now. Yeah. What we do, let me show you what we do. I've never had one called, but if you did, there's ways to work on that too, but we wouldn't have time. That's more advanced. But what we do is this. We take title to the property. We do it with an attorney. We do it with a settlement statement. Just, it's not go collect a deed. I know some people teach that. We actually bring the sellers in and we do a settlement statement and the whole bit. The only difference for someone to visualize, and then I'll talk about the legalities or the nuances. The only visualize this, if you ever bought a home, on one side of the settlement statement, there's a line that says the new bank loan, says the new bank's name and the money they're coming to the table with. Real simple, right? Yeah. Okay. So if that's the case, then all we do is we show the subject to existing loan staying in place and whatever amount is due on it. And then the attorney and the title company balance it all out. Now, does the bank get notified, quote unquote? No, we don't notify anyone. Right. What we do is we do place our own insurance on it, and we notify we have a checklist, obviously, but we notify the bank that they look at us as a quasi-management company, if you will. That's all they think. Oh, we got notified, so we're going to send them the bill from now on, and then they're going to pay the mortgage, just like a management company would. Yeah. We also put, again, this is a legal issue. Okay. Our community has some great attorneys now, but if you're not in our community, you can find an attorney that does these. Mm-hmm. And we put title into a trust, and we phrase it like this. We title it like this, Glenn. If it's your house, it's going to be the Glenn 123 Jump Street Family Trust. And so that's not a guarantee. It's just another level of safety, because the Garment-St. Germain Act back in 82 allows family planning and transfers inside of trust and stuff, like if my wife and I did. Yeah. And so we just do it that way, just our choice. Again, your attorney will advise you however they want. Not to get too advanced, but if you're concerned about that at all, then you would do it maybe contract for deed or a land contract, because that doesn't transfer then. And I don't want to get too crazy detail, but just know that there's systems in place.
Cool. And then can any title company or attorney do this? Or do you need one who actually understands this and more specializes in it?
Well, I'm smiling because can they? Yes. Do they know how? No. Let me I always like to give you a story so it's real and it's not theory. We have a student in New Jersey, not far from me. Yep. And I said to him, just here's our contract. Our contracts are all given to the students. Like, we have everything pre-done with very few tweaks in each state. Yeah. Well, I called for him. He had to go to Israel on a trip. And I called because he said he couldn't find an attorney. And I said, this is crazy. Of course you can find an attorney to do sub twos. I went through 3 or 4. Glenn, without exaggeration, I was ready to pull my hair out. So I finally got an attorney through Mine Here. I said, look, you got to help me find an attorney. So he found me an attorney that's in 32 states, does creative financing, and saved that deal and closed it within a week. So all that to say, literally the attorneys in Jersey would tell me, no, you can't do that. Because why? Because they don't do it. And liability wise, they don't want to touch it. Instead of being smart and saying, I know someone who does, they say, no, you can't do that here. And then the next attorney says, yeah, it's all I do. It's just crazy to me. And that's almost every state. But we just solved that in Jersey by going to the fourth attorney who knew what they were doing.
That's awesome. The
that
same
crazy?
thing I've heard for like even wholesalers, right? When you want to do a wholesaling deal, I was trying to figure out what states it was illegal in. I was doing all the Googling and going through everything. And then I found out like it's not illegal in any states. It's just that title companies just don't understand it. When I started investing in the US, I did it by myself and had to go through the growing pains of doing that. GlennSutherland.com/coaching. A 12-week coaching program done 1 hour per week over Zoom from the comfort of your own home. Classes are kept to 5 people to be able to answer everyone's questions. Shortcut the process. Make fewer mistakes. Curriculum available at GlennSutherland.com/coaching.
Well, Illinois is an issue, I guess. I'm not an attorney, but I do have a student there, and it's not illegal. You have to be licensed to do it in Illinois. It's like in Florida. This is the only other one I know of. In Florida, if you or I were there in business, Glenn, and we did deals, we're fine. But if we then hired, say, an acquisitionist or what we call a seller specialist to go do that for us, someone needs to hang a license there. Again, why do these laws come up? Because investors stupidly, in my opinion, break the rules or take advantage of someone. And then a new rule comes out like this. And so if we just do it with what we're supposed to do morally ethically, this wouldn't happen. But yeah, there are some nuances in different states.
Cool. So we've been talking a bit about subject twos. He does a lot of lease options too. And I think even whenever you put these under contract with the seller, even under subject to or a lease option, you're usually looking to rent to own or lease option this out on the back end, correct?
We are, yes, good point, on most of our deals. And I say most because if I get you as a buyer and you say, and I have a long term on the house, this is only if I have a longer term, like longer than 4 years.
Yeah.
And you say to me, yep, I'm ready, rent to own, I qualified, I went through the mortgage ready plan, I'm good. Once I know you understand you're going for a loan in 4 years or whatever it is, I then break the good news to you. Hey, Glenn, good news. When you get your deposit up to 20% instead of 10, when you make every payment and we check that after a year, I'm going to consider owner financing you, and you'll never have to go to the bank and pay those fees and go through underwriting. And I'll go ahead and change that buyer deal to an owner finance deal. So I become the bank then, which is cool. Yeah. So those are what we call stacking. We're in the process of trademarking this because you get a portfolio going, you get like 4 or 5 properties. And then I come in and go, okay, cool. Let's take this deal and change it up a bit. Right. And we go back to the seller. So it's called stacking, wealth stacking.
Yeah. And one thing I liked from your book too is the actually qualifying the rent to own buyer. I've read a lot of books on rent to own, and a lot of people skip over that step.
Do you bet? I was on a podcast, Glenn, you probably know that, so it's not important, but I look at the shows like with yours. I'll look at the shows and go, oh yeah, I was on that, or I never was. Let me listen to a few. Yeah. And I heard one about a week or two ago, and the mentor, the coach, guru, whatever you want to call him, was on there outwardly saying on the podcast, hey, here's what you do. You put a buyer in there, who cares if they qualify? And if they default, you collect a deposit and then you go do it again with another buyer. I'm like, I couldn't believe I was hearing this. I knew people talk about it, but he or she may have a legal agreement that says they can do it. But again, to put your head on the pillow at night, morally and ethically, it stinks. You're setting a buyer up to fail. Yes, we set them up to win. We have a default rate of about 2 to 5%. I don't know what the government loans are, but I bet you they're worse. Like that's not a bad default rate. That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's good. And even the people who are setting them people up to fail, the other investors, it's just going to be one of those things that just clouds the whole lease option.
Yeah.
It's going to be lease options are dirty. Like I've even heard this. They're people are just using it to take people's deposits and run away. And I don't do that. I know that you go through a little bit more screening than I do. I usually put them with a mortgage broker to try and see where they qualify and what they need to do.
Smart.
Maybe talk about what you do with your qualifying these rent to own buyers.
Yeah. And let me precede that. And I'll tell you the system. My son, Nick, does it. But let me tell you why it's the opposite with you and I. We have right now, since COVID, a massive influx of people leaving the W-2. We call it planning their escape to get to entrepreneurship, but it's already happening. Mass exodus from W-2s, right? If that's the case, all those people, whether they realize it or not, they can't go get a bank loan today. You need 2 years of seasoning in the US, 2 years of proof of your new business. Guess what? They're perfect buyers. They got good credit. They got deposits, and they want to get to the end zone. And we show them how. So our process is like this, not too dissimilar to yours. They fill out what we call a next step form that goes to my son. My son then sends them through our credit screening company. They'll tell us if they need credit enhancement or they just need seasoning. It's okay. We just need to know. And how long they think that might take. We get a report back. The report says 12 to 18, 18 to 24, 24 to 36, whatever. If that fits within our terms with it that we have with our seller and we like them, we got a good gut feel, we accept them. Only then do we accept them. And we say no to a lot of buyers because we do care if they get to the end zone. It's miserable if they don't.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. And I also, you have now paperwork, right? So if you're like, hey, we could do this as a shorter lease option, or we could do this as a longer, you have
Right.
like, it's not, I love when it's always a third party dictating how these are going to, certain points, how they're going to run through in this contract, rather than this is just what I say.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There is another side of it you made me think of. So we've had almost everything you could think of happen. People passing away. So we have had buyers that get amnesia. So here's your plan. You can't run up debt. You got to keep these credit card balances here. You can't skip a payment. And then 2 years later, they screw all that up and they come back and go, oh, we don't know what we signed. Or if they say something stupid like that, we go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Here's your plan you signed on. Here's the document you signed in front of the attorney. So I don't want to make this sound like it's all rosy. Like buyers do try to challenge that once in a while, like 1 out of 30. And we go, no. So, and they never win on it because we have a set system and we want you to win. It's very clear when you look at the paperwork.
Yeah. And even for those, whenever I have clauses where I think they may challenge it or sometime, or they may forget certain parts of the contract, any fees or anything that's in there that may be unusual, I usually like to literally highlight the heck out of it and have them sign beside all those.
Initial it. Yeah.
Initial those spots. Cause I'm like, I don't want to ever say that I tricked them into signing this thing, or that they got forced into not reading the whole thing or something like that. Right.
So two things we do on that. Great. Another great point. You can tell you've been digging. So our sub 2 deals with our sellers, literally what you said is like a page and 3/4 of, they have to initial each and every line. Okay. And then on the buyer's side, they have to sign that with my attorney. And so if they call up and us and get amnesia, you said forget, but they get amnesia, then I say, oh, no problem. Just call my attorney. And the call never happens again after they call my attorney, because my attorney's probably like, well, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even ask them what they say, because it's a joke. You signed it in front of him or her and you got it notarized.
Yeah. And they're in this part of this contract, like what usually, if this doesn't go to plan, is what they're mostly concerned about is that original option consideration or the deposit that they put down on the property. What do you usually ask for as a deposit?
If they go to, so when we pre-qualify these people, my son doesn't want to get, 300 calls and tell everybody each time. So we have a series of videos on the websites. Our students do too. They can get these pre-done. And they're required to go through the videos. And one of the many videos tells them that we are in the range to get into the home. We are in the range of 3 to 10%. Now, 3 might get you in the door if everything else looks awesome, and we understand where the money's coming from, but it's not going to get you a loan in most cases. So you got to get that to 10 over the course of the rent own. That's all. And if it's a jumbo, you got to get to 20. I don't want to set you up to lose at the end of this whole process.
You want to explain jumbo to?
Yeah, sorry. So, and I also apologize that I'm just stating metrics in the US because I don't want to misstate. Okay. But across North America, this holds. But in the US, in different states, and even within different states and different counties, there are what's called jumbo loans. So in Rhode Island, let's say it's anything over 475. I think I'm real close on that. Once it's over 475 and it's considered to be a jumbo, a larger loan, the qualification's harder. The down payment is higher, usually 20%. And the underwriting is grueling. Yeah. And so I stay away from them, but there's a lot of people that don't have any problem doing those. They pledge their credit and do them, but that's what a jumbo is, the larger loans, and it's state by state.
Gotcha. I didn't really want to go into just talking about all the different ways you do this, because we kind of touched on that when I re-listened to the episode last time. So if you are listening, you're going, what the heck is he talking about? What are the all different structures and how the wholesale, or sorry, well, we didn't really talk about the wholesale, but as an exit option, but we talked about the option outs, the sandwich leases, subject to, and the
owner financing.
Or
yeah,
that's what I'm looking at for you. What other stuff should I ask you about this? Those were kind of my quick questions. I did talk. I have some. We could talk land contracts or different ways to exit this if you're scared of the subject too. If you're interested in talking about that kind of thing.
I could talk about that. And let me just mention this. It's fresh in my brain because I'm going to be doing a workshop tonight.
Sure.
And that is, there's sort of what I call the old way of doing real estate. I've been at this 31 years, and there's the new way. In the old way, a lot of people experience, even if they did one deal, and that is you go do a deal. It's transactional. You get check. Okay, cool. I did it for my first 18 years. I have no complaint. It was a good lifestyle aside of a couple of market cycles, but 3 paydays is the new way. And there's no reason not to do that. We have that trademarked in the United States, the system we teach. And think about this for a second. During COVID, and even right now, as things are changing, I could not do a deal, Glenn. When I say my students, my family, we could say, hey, you know what? Let's not do a deal for 6 months. And we have so many deals that we're already put in the hopper, paying us continuously over time and long-term from several years ago that go infinitely. Really, I could stop doing deals. So there's a big difference from that than back when I was a realtor in the 90s, selling 100 homes and then getting up January 1st and going, oh man, I got to do this again. It's transactional. We set it up to be 3 paydays. So you get paid now, then you get paid monthly, then you get paid down longer term, and you can dictate that. That's cool. So I want people to understand that. That's so important with creative real estate in the 3 paydays system. As far as I think you asked me before I did that rant, you asked me about other ways to exit. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, if you were scared of subject twos, like some contracts or some different ways of putting this together.
Well, let me use again a story so it's real. Brian in Illinois. It's funny I brought up Illinois before for the wholesaling, but Brian when he came in, he was 17 years in the elevator sales business, no real estate except for his own home, which he lost money on. Yeah. So when he learned what we do, he got the fact that to our point earlier, you and I, sub 2 is powerful. You can depreciate. There's so many cool things about it. But the risk in his brain was, I'm brand new. I'm going to stick with lease purchase. And he's not in Texas, so he can do sandwich leases. And so his first 8 deals, Glenn, he did on a lease purchase, sandwich lease, because he did a rent-own out. And he accumulated in 3 paydays, all 8 deals. It was like $838,000 or something like that, give or take. Oh. So almost $1 million in his first 8 deals. Now, here's the punchline to your question. He never took title, right? Because the lease purchase, he's just controlling that. And we do cloud title, so we control our interest. Yep. And guess what? Every agreement we have built into our agreements for lease purchase is $10. $10. And he said, Chris, on 2 of them, I gave him $10. On the other 6, I didn't. So the agreements, he spent literally $60 to tie up a few $1 million in real estate or whatever the number was in Illinois and make almost $1 million in 3 paydays. Think about that. So that if that makes you sleep better at night, if you're brand new, that's the way to go if you're new. However, I'm going to have Brian speak at our March event, and the topic is transitioning from sandwich leases to sub 2, because now we're doing that wealth stacking to his portfolio. We're plucking out properties, going to the owner, renegotiating, buying those properties. Now he turned a 3, 4, 5-year deal into a 20 or a 15 or whatever it might be. His son will have it, So that was a long answer, but I hope that helps. There's other cool things you can do inside the space because real estate changes. You just have to change and pivot with it.
Yep. No, I agree. And you kept mentioning 3 paydays. And I think a lot of people underwhelmed with how important that is. Whenever I was doing this, and I used to do just burrs, I was doing burr, like refinance, pretty traditional sort of real estate. And what would happen is you always feel poor. You need to be creating 3 paydays. And if for whatever reason, if you don't want to learn lease options, you don't want to do it, you're going to have to combine some strategies because you are going to need some money now, some money soon, and some money later. And if you are sticking to this money later thing or the money soon thing, it's going to be a hard ride. Honestly, that's where you need to start creating some money soon. And if you do all money soons, then you're transactional, and as soon as you stop, you're poor again.
Yeah, miles love a job. I hate to say it because I'd rather throw up, but I'm just saying we can teach you how to do that. The payday ones are your immediate. Your payday ones are your short term. Then you have the rest. That's cool.
Yeah. So I've drank the Kool-Aid. I love the stuff. Chris, let's quickly talk about your course, your community, and how to get a hold of you.
Yeah. So first thing is we created a link. I just located it before I started talking to you, before we went online. And that was for the free books. And this is not here's my free book, and then you put a credit card in for $6 in shipping. This is free. We will ship the hard copy. It's not electronic. Just go to wickedsmartbooks.com/Glenn. And because we created this just for Glenn's tribe, and we want to get that in you guys' hands. I'm big on free because there's a lot of shiny objects in real estate. Do your due diligence and then understand what path you want to take. And if you're passionate and serious, we'll help you. We do have a free master's class, Glenn. I go fast and I do it for an hour, and it's free. And you just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class. And it's a little bit more about what Glenn and I were saying to kind of piece the episodes together, so to speak.
Yeah, love it. And he has a couple books. Maybe you want to touch on the books too before we go. There's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, we just had our 4th bestseller. So on Amazon, you're going to get 2 of them in the mail. For those the listeners, you're going to get Real Estate on Your Terms, and you're going to get Deal Structure Overtime, which is really cool. All about deal structure and the nuances behind the scenes that, frankly, other mentors don't want to tell you. It's the hard stuff. Yeah. And then the other 2, you just showed one, New Rules of Real Estate, and then we came out last month, I think it was, with bestseller, Sell with Authority for the Real Estate Investor. That talks more about, there's 7 students that wrote a chapter in there. So that's really cool. It's impactful. But it talks about how can you become the authority in your local marketplace so that people want to deal with you, or when they look you up, they say, hey, oh, Glenn's the guy. Because all these home buyers and the iBuyers and all these things that come and go and frankly hurt a lot of people, they come in and then the locals don't know what to do. They don't know who to choose. Be the authority. We show you how to do that in that book.
That's great. I love it. So I'm going to put all those links in the show note. So people who are like trying to write this all down and scramble, especially if you're driving, as I go. Don't do that. But yeah, I'll put them all in the show notes. So it'll be nice and quick and easy to get a hold of. And then, you can be part of his community. He has a coaching program. He has a lot of great books, which will get you hooked on the whole thing. But once again, Chris, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Lots of value once again.
I appreciate you having me back, and your questions are in the trenches. So I love it. Thank you.